7 days a week, 6 shows a day, the Aquacade opens with a big splash, and a Montgomery girl is one of the stars.
Princess Mio Mayo.
Princess Mio Mayo is 22-year-old Kathy Story of Montgomery. She's a recent graduate of Florida State University and now is a synchronized swimmer at the World's Fair Aquacade.
A little bit of everything. Most people think of it as the Esther Williams days with water ballet, which now modern synchro is more athletic. It's a dancing in the water, but it's an awful lot of skills where you need a lot of dance background, a lot of swimming workouts, underwater skills, breathing, it's just a combination of everything.
Kathy is one of 35 girls in the show. Vasa Gerasimova is another. Formerly a swimmer for the Russian national team, Vasa defected from that country 2 years ago. And although she wouldn't talk to us about why or how she defected for fear of reprisal from her homeland, she would talk to us about the fair.
First time I said no because I was so busy studying and working. I said no, but then I just changed my mind. I said, why not? I have to try. Maybe it will be last time in your life, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I decided.
Has it worked out like you thought?
Yes. Oh, yes, very much. It's going to be a lot of fun. I love it already.
How does this compare to the swimming you were doing in Russia? Is it similar or?
Oh, it's big different. It's big different. I never danced before. Now I'm dancing. We are dancing.
In addition to the dancing swimmers, you'll also see members of the U.S. diving team performing dives that brought home the gold from the Munich Olympics. And it's all free with admission to the fair. Lisa Walsh, WSFA TV News at the World's Fair in New Orleans.
Who's coming back? 99 FM drill team here, by the way.
The start.
but we feel that it's time now for a grand jury which will sit in special session as needed for however long is needed to investigate any violations of the criminal laws of the state of Alabama in reports to the Alabama Department of Environmental Management. They may have less than an arm's length relationship with an expertise in the environmental area.
Are we taking stuff?
Well, that's to some debate. Environmentalists suspect that those records are inaccurate, that there may be.
Earlier in the week, it had been rumored that 500 Klansmen would march in Abbeville, but only 18 took part in today's march. They walked peacefully for 2 blocks to the Henry County Courthouse. One black woman stood next to the courthouse laughing as the marchers went by. Once there, Alabama's Grand Dragon says a Klan came to Abbeville because Abbeville wanted the Klan there. His message was political. Jim Blair is upset with Washington politics, which he says is controlled by communists.
We've got people in Washington, D.C. right now that don't no more care about the white people in this town or this county or this state of Alabama than nothing in the world.
He's also critical of Alabama Senator Howell Heflin's handling of the school prayer amendment.
3 times that joker changed his position on prayer in school. Then when he found out that it wouldn't go through anyway, he jumps on the bandwagon now and tells everybody he's sponsored for prayer in school.
But Blair is endorsing the re-election of one Washington politician.
The only thing you can do is keep Ronald Reagan up yonder for president of the United States and let him keep standing up and show that he's got guts and backbone, and maybe he'll back the white people in the United States of America.
The Klan has another rally scheduled for tonight in Columbia in eastern Houston County. Cal Calloway, WSFA TV News, Abbeville.
This is the second such memorial service honoring law enforcement officers. Alabama is one of the few states which remembers in an annual ceremony officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty. Alabama will soon become the first state to erect a monument in their honor. The cornerstone of that monument was set into place today on the Capitol lawn.
Randolph G. Glover, Raymond M. Carlton.
The names of Alabama officers who have been killed on the job were read and a flower placed on a wreath in their honor.
1983, we lost Nathaniel Connors of Marengo County and Rex Winchester of Jefferson County. No doubt next year we'll have to talk about this year because the statistics are not in.
Fire!
Lisa Walsh, WSFA TV News.
Fire!
The first submarine to carry the name USS Alabama was launched today with all the fanfare the ship's builders, General Dynamics, could muster. The guest list included many community, government, and Navy officials, as well as the 154-man crew that will call this ship home. The keynote address came from Alabama Congressman Bill Dickinson. As ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, he was the one who had the name Alabama placed on this sub.
The people of Alabama want a strong, secure America. If I may be so bold as to speak for all within my state, it is my judgment that they wholeheartedly support the deterrent potential presented by this great boat.
There were also some uninvited guests at the christening. Several hundred protesters of nuclear weapons gathered outside the shipyard.
We prefer to remember and commemorate the state of Alabama from the long history of nonviolent actions for civil and human rights.
The USS Alabama, which floated next to the incomplete USS Alaska, will carry 24 Trident missiles, each with 10 nuclear warheads. The ship itself weighs more than 18,000 tons and is almost as long as 2 football fields. It took 2.5 years to get the nearly billion-dollar USS Alabama off of the drawing board and into the water. It took only a few moments for Congressman Dickinson's wife, Barbara, to make it all official.
May God bless her and all who sail in her. May she serve her nation
The USS Alabama won't go into active operations for about another year. There will be many tests for this nuclear sub before it is accepted as one of this nation's fighting ships. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News with the USS Alabama in Groton, Connecticut.
Today's 6th annual Jubilee River Run and Lightning Route Run saw a total of 922 participants. The 6.2-mile river run, John Stewart's was the #1 finisher, his time 33 minutes 34 seconds. The 2-foot races were just a part of the 6th annual Jubilee weekend. The second race saw the course shortened to only 2 miles, most of those confined to the downtown area. The finish line just along Commerce Street was a friendly sight for these runners, ranging in age from 7 to over 60. First place went to Brett Sutton, who timed in at 10 minutes and 22 seconds. And you also saw the youth in the races today. You have to hand it to these little folks running with the grown-ups. And there was one other special person today, Donnie Sims, who finished both races working just as hard as the others. Gail Ogle was the female winner in the 6.2-miler, and one of the Larson family members took the red tape in the Lightning Run. Beverly Larson was the first female finisher in the 2-mile course.
Ironically, the most famous warship named Alabama never flew the Stars and Stripes. She was the Confederate steam sloop of war built for the South in England in 1862. The CSS Alabama was credited with the destruction or capture of 70 Union ships before she was sunk by the USS Kearsarge off the coast of France in June of 1864. The Union also had an Alabama, but she was put to work blockading the South Atlantic. The U.S. Navy has had 2 other ships named Alabama, but in each case, both were renamed before they were commissioned for service. In October of 1900, the battleship Alabama was commissioned. This turn-of-the-century behemoth spent its first few years in the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. During World War I, this 11,000-ton monster was used for training and towed submarine chasers as far south as Key West. She was decommissioned in 1920, and 4 years later, her hulk was sold for scrap. But a new battleship, Alabama, was only 18 years away, and unlike its predecessor, this more modern vessel saw lots of action in World War II. From the North Atlantic to the Pacific, the battleship Alabama fought its way to 9 battle stars and participated in the occupation of Japan. She was decommissioned in 1947. In 1964, she was given to the state of Alabama and was put on permanent display as a memorial to Alabama's war dead. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Alabama Congressman Bill Dickinson and his wife Barbara weren't the only Alabamians on hand for this weekend's launching of the USS Alabama. It's a long way from Dixie to this coastal town in Connecticut, but for some of the new crew members of the USS Alabama, it'll be a little bit closer to home than you might think. Meet the Alabama's only native Alabamians. Ronald Chambers, the new sub's radio man, is from Birmingham. After 20 years in the Navy, he re-enlisted one more time just so he could serve on this ship.
I like that state, and I'm planning on retiring there, and I wanted to come to the Alabama. I've been trying for it for about a year, and I finally got it.
It's a similar story for Mike Kimbrell of Florence and John Rossetti of Madison. Both say they'll go back to their home state someday, but for now, the USS Alabama is the next best thing to home.
It's going to be a lot of hard work, but I feel really proud to be on a Trident boat, and being on Alabama is even more important to me.
But the new Alabama also has a special significance for another group at the launching, many of the men who served on the old battleship Alabama, and to the veterans who now take care of that ship in Mobile. They say the new Alabama carries a proud tradition.
I think it would be great. I think the tradition would be carried on as far as the United States is concerned, as far as the entire population of the United States of America is concerned.
He's a former submariner, so he'd be a little bit prejudiced, you know. And,
Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News in Groton, Connecticut.
But I think finally, in this realm of dedication,
the road work has already started for widening. The land is good, the water and sewer facilities are here. Transportation is available to and from the city through up to the interstate and back to Vaughan Road, and people just like to live here. A lot of good people out this way.
We have for a long time had a flying site in different areas in and around Montgomery, and because Montgomery began to move and get closer to our field, we were forced to move from one location to the other. And actually this field now we've had since last November, and we have leased for a long time, and we've been able to make some improvements here, putting in an asphalt runway so that we can allow our members to come out and be able to have fun and fly and have family activities.
After a brief delay because of pressing bad weather, things got underway in what was first a pitcher's duel. Lynn Barker for the Braves and Jose De Leon for Pittsburgh. Barker lost his no-hitter in the fourth inning. Jason Thompson with this double to right field. The first score of the game came in the sixth inning. Dale Berra of Pittsburgh hitting his third round tripper of the season. Alex Trevino would spoil the no-hitter for De Leon in the seventh. That proved to be what Atlanta needed. As what would follow, Rafael Ramirez would score Trevino on this fielder's choice. Next, Albert Hall would slide in under Pirate catcher Tony Pena. Hall was safe, and Atlanta was ahead for good. Some more insurance runs in the ninth inning with 2 men out. Pitch hitter Bob Watson would drive a long shot to the wall. 2 more would score as the Braves won over Pittsburgh 5-1.
Payne Stewart held a 2-stroke lead over Peter Jacobsen heading into the final round. He lost the lead early in the day, but got it back here on the 15th. From the fringe, he sends it down for the birdie. And he joined this man, Peter Jacobsen, on the first hole of sudden death after both finished at 10 under par. This is where Jacobsen won it, with the approach shot. Heading right at the pin, he stops the ball just 5 feet away. And while Payne Stewart ended up with a bogey, Jacobsen would win it the right way with a birdie. Peter Jacobsen wins the Colonial Invitational Tournament in sudden death over Payne Stewart.
It was Senator John Teague's so-called municipal option bill which Governor Wallace opposed, particularly, he says, since 34 of the 47 legislators from those dry county areas also voted against the measure. And he says he and other governors have historically been against the idea of letting a city within a dry county go wet.
I not only felt that way, but when my wife was governor, Governor Larry Lee, and I advised her to veto the same bill, and Governor Albert Brewer vetoed the same bill. And evidently, it sounded as if it were to avoid the vote on that bill.
The governor attached his veto to the bill and sent it to the Senate, but Senator Teague slammed the door shut on the governor by adjourning, ending the Senate's work this session, stopping the governor's veto and leaving the municipal option bill alive, but killing a number of other bills the administration wanted.
I would say it's bizarre and unusual.
Killed with the Senate's departure is the governor's state employee pay raise, his proposed property tax measure, his tax on municipal electric companies, and some 130 other bills that could have been acted on. The governor says he doesn't know if he'll try to revive his bill in any future special session. He's calling one to begin tomorrow, but it's to deal with changing the state's codes on lawsuits between employees or employers.
If you load it up in a special session which has a limited time to meet, you may wind up a completely wrecked session and we'll lose both of the items that we are very interested in at this time.
The abrupt Senate adjournment is a first for recent memory, but just another item veteran observers have stored in their trivia bags. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
42 people in his district. He received contributions from 217 political. More than 90% of his campaign financing. Anyone else?
The figure of 42.
Thank y'all for coming. Again, if you need to get in touch with us, you can leave messages, I think, with the Jim shop down at Allenette. I'm going to be...
Committee in relation to this United States Senate race. That's our sole purpose this morning. We wanted to give you an opportunity to see the...
Last year, Howell Heflin took more special interest money than any politician in America, including Walter Mondale. At least Walter Mondale gave it back.
And we used those two companies in relation.
Howell Heflin said he'd stand up to the Washington crowd. That's what he said, but look at what he's done. Last year, Howell Heflin cast Alabama's Senate vote against Ronald Reagan more than half the time. And last year, Alabama candidate Heflin took more special interest money than Walter Mondale, more than any other politician in America. When special interest talk, Hal Heflin listens. Alabama's voting for Washington crowd again.
And what would you expect to pay for it if you went to the hardware store? $5, $10, perhaps $15 at the most. Well, that is, unless you're the Department of Defense and you're doing business with Gould Incorporated. And then instead of paying $5, $10, or $15 for a hammer, you would fork over, as you can see from the price tag, $435 for this hammer. Let me bring...
The early concerns were that the more than $2 billion in budgets would be hanging in limbo on this, the last legislative day, but the lawmakers have worked extra hard, particularly 2 weeks ago, to beat those odds, and they were able 2 weeks ago to pass the education and the general fund budgets. The other parts of the governor's package that that have become law include one that would bump the price of your automobile license plate by $10. Another would bump the fees tacked on to gas by 1 cent a gallon and nearly 2 cents per gallon on diesel fuel. The balance of the governor's bad package is hanging in limbo, and still up in the air is one major tax measure, the measure the governor wants the voters to act on in November, and it would bump your state income tax from 5% to 6%. The other major administration increase proposal would bump the state property tax levels, and that was just killed by the Senate on a controversial vote. A measure that would make customers of municipal electric companies also pay a utility tax faces a stiff uphill fight in the Senate and is predicted by some to die. Meanwhile, the governor's bill to enact major educational reforms is doing better and still awaits a potentially final vote in the House. Meanwhile, the governor watches this package move along. He's preparing to bring lawmakers back to Montgomery tomorrow to begin a special session on yet another matter, changing the state's laws on who and how workers can sue co-employees or workers, an issue said to be the state's biggest downfall.
And the governor's feeling is that if we can bring about any modification that will make Alabama more competitive, that it's a worthwhile step for the Alabama legislature. And that's what he's striving to do.
Bob, the co-employee measure is important to the administration. They say that it will be brought up and introduced when the session begins sometime tomorrow.
Well, what's the difference between Governor Wallace's co-employee liability bill and that one that was presented by the James administration earlier?
According to Mr. Camp, the one offered by the James administration several years ago was an absolute blanket against any type of co-employee liabilities. It would have not allowed you to sue under almost any circumstance. The proposal that is being hammered out between labor and management during this Wallace administration is supposedly a bit of a compromise to that and would allow some conditional lawsuits to be handled.
And I think the key thing that we overlooked is the fact that that bill was overwhelmingly defeated with the James administration. Thanks, Chris. We'll be looking for more tonight coming up at 10 o'clock.
Tubbs is an 8-year veteran of the County Sheriff's Patrol Division. The charges were brought after a search warrant was executed at his apartment in East Montgomery this weekend. Lieutenant W.M. Pilgreen is the spokesman for the County Sheriff's Office.
The Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, in conjunction with the Montgomery Police Department, served a search warrant on the home of Deputy Mike Tubbs on Friday afternoon, May the 18th. As a result of the search, the defendant was found to be in possession of what is believed to be a quantity of marijuana and Valium. Deputy Tubbs is presently on leave pending further investigation. This case will be prosecuted as any other.
The charges against Deputy Tubbs this weekend marks the first time in several years that narcotics allegations have been made against an area law enforcement officer. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Alcoholism now has become a major concern of all brewers, people in the wine business and the alcohol business too. This is our alternative from a major brewer to at least start looking at this problem.
Well, the procedure basically is, very briefly, that you obtain a very small sample of your own blood. The diabetic patient does. It amounts to no more than a drop, and it's placed on a special chemically treated strip, which you then go through a waiting period, wipe it off the strip. The strip is inserted into the machine, and the machine gives you a digital readout on the blood sugar level. Any diabetic patient would probably be satisfied with anything under about 150.
It has been 13 years since the Kansas City Chiefs made the NFL playoffs. 40-year-old John Mackovic intends to help put the Chiefs back in postseason play, but after a 6-10 first year, the recent NFL draft was never so important to the Chiefs head coach.
This year, we sort of looked more to the defense, and we went with Bill Moss early, big nose tackle from Pittsburgh, and Scott Radisek, the linebacker from Penn State.
To fill the void at running back created by the unexpected death of Joe Delaney, the Chiefs lured Ken Lacey away from the Michigan Panthers of the United States Football League. But don't ask John Mackovic to toot the rival league's horn. A successful college coach before entering the pro ranks, Mackovic directed Wake Forest to a stunning 42-38 upset of Auburn in 1979. He considers that game one of the highlights of his coaching career.
We scored 22 straight points and won the game 42-38. And at that time, I think it was probably the biggest game that was ever played at Wake Forest. May still be, because we had an unusually large crowd, overflow, people sitting on the banks. And we were both ranked in the top 20 at that particular time. Auburn's used to that, but Wake Forest had not been.
Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
And the values of strength and conditioning of everyone involved. After that, I just sort of let things, the players look upon it. This year we even drafted, I think, 3 players.
Your personal feelings about the league?
I think the National Football League is, without a doubt, one of the finest entertainment industries that we have in the entire country, perhaps in the whole world. We run a first-class operation. Our games are exciting. We have a playoff system that's, to my way of thinking, among the best. It's well conceived, well thought out. We put our best teams in there. We produce a game on a week-to-week basis that is as well run and as well choreographed and as well played as it's ever been. And I know that there are players playing in the United States Football League, and that league is gaining and growing and hoping to have the same credibility and the same feeling about all that they're doing. But I'm really strongly in favor of how we play our game and what we do, and I think our league again in 1984 will have an outstanding and extremely exciting season.
The Celtics in green, leading 3 games to none, looking to sweep the Milwaukee Bucks. Bird to Maxwell, and in the early moments, it was all the Celtics. Now, Milwaukee's coach Don Nelson, who's been paranoid about the opposition stealing his signals, hiding his signs behind his jacket tonight. It would work. The Bucks' Junior Bridgman to Sidney Moncrief on the miss, but Alton Lister is there for the jam. Milwaukee would build a 61-46 lead at the half. Larry Bird couldn't believe the things he was seeing in the Mecca. To the second half of the game, Junior Bridgman, he had a hot hand, as did Marcus Johnson. Marcus with 14 points. And then the Celtics would turn it over. Dennis Johnson on a steal by Lanier to Bridgman, to Michael Dunleavy on the fast break. And suddenly the Milwaukee Bucks were running away from the Boston Celtics. The Mecca crowd enjoying every moment of this playoff as their team was still alive. Even in defeat, Larry Bird, an outstanding performance with 32 points, but that just wasn't enough as the Milwaukee Bucks, with a hot hand from Paul Pressey, who had 22, down the Boston Celtics 122-113. I'm George Michael for NBC News.
They are all winners, 48 fine young Christian athletes who have distinguished themselves in athletics, academics, character, leadership. John Mackovic, head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, told them to continue to develop their talents and their knowledge and to dedicate themselves and to persevere with enthusiasm, and they are well on their way. And of the 48, the choice of the Hitchcock Committee was a 3-sport letterman at Carver High, an all-city football player, a member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, co-editor of the school yearbook, a troop leader in Boy Scouts, the possessor of a 3.8 grade point average, a member of Our Lady Queen of Mercy Church, Patrick Watley, winner of the 1984 Jimmy Hitchcock Award.
I guess the most important person to thank would have to be God, since he's the one who gave me the talent that I have and the gift, rather, of talent.
Phil Snow, WSFA TV Sports.
Half of it. So that's some more of those tax dollars. Nothing but politics. One, which is somebody being injured. Here he is. He signed up for the job to keep criminals behind bars, but all he does is get on state airplanes and roam all over the state telling people things that aren't true. Giving a snow job to you people. That's not fair to the taxpayer. That's not fair to the law-abiding citizen. It's just period, not fair. If they'd have built the corrections department, and I've looked at it, 90 out of 90, 22 of them are murderers. 25 of them are armed robbers. 17 of them are burglars.
This case involves 6 blockhouses on Bayshore Avenue in Dothan, one of which has been the home of 77-year-old Willie Mae Ward for 14 years. She has no running water in her home, so she's drawing water from an outdoor faucet. She has an outdoor bathroom, but no bathtub or shower. Officials say these conditions violate city codes.
No, we don't have no heat. Only wood and coal. We don't have no hot water. What hot water I get, I heat it on the stove.
These haven't been her only worries. She also says she has problems with roaches and rats.
Well, we have some rats. Manuel was in the bed last night, and Manuel heard one in the kitchen. He says, I'm going to fix you tomorrow night. We got some traps. He said he going to set the traps tonight for them rats.
City Attorney Brian Dowling says the city filed the suit to help people like Mrs. Ward who are forced to live in these conditions.
The purpose is to either make, especially absentee landowners that own these old houses in Dothan, to either keep them fixed up where they're fit to live in or tear them down.
If the owners of these homes don't bring them up to minimum city standards, city officials say that the residents will probably be served eviction papers. Mary Beth Boyd, WSFA TV News, Dothan.
The first flight of Shuttle Orbiter Discovery, now scheduled for June 19th, will carry a very large solar array developed by scientists at the Marshall Space Flight Center. Future space platforms and stations will need lots of electricity, but solar panels are not only expensive and heavy, but hard to bring back to Earth for repairs. These problems could be solved if Marshall's experiment is successful. Scientists in Huntsville have developed a collapsible, lightweight solar panel. This animation shows how the panel will be deployed from the shuttle. An epoxy fiberglass mast is used to extend the plastic panel from 7 inches to 102 feet. Once extended, shuttle astronauts will perform experiments to test the structure, which will be the largest ever deployed in space. They'll also check out 3 different types of solar cells. Only one of the 84 panels in the solar array will contain working cells, and these will be used in the evaluation. If all panels were generating electricity, the array could produce about 12.5 kilowatts of electricity, enough to run several average homes, or in the future, several of the panels could supply electricity for a city in space. If the panel gets stuck in the extended position, shuttle astronauts can remove the entire $6 million array from the cargo bay with the remote manipulator arm. The experiment will be controlled from Houston, but scientists in Huntsville will be kept busy providing support for the mission from Alabama. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Sally, I see the PDP have only tripped off.
We're going to...
I was able to watch this growing up. I was able to watch it on the mud and things in Vietnam. We were always happy to get the Air Force diving, and particularly over the last 3 or 4 years, it's become a different ballgame. And as I said, I'm very.
Colonel Mark D. Enway, Spain. Colonel James C. Baker. Lieutenant Colonel Gene F. Bartlow.
Lou Lehrman says he's answering the president's call. President Reagan thought there should be a national group to promote conservative ideas, and Lehrman is organizing Citizens for America. Alabama is his 30th state, now that Montgomery businessman Ben Collier has agreed to be state chairman. Lehrman says CAF will lobby for free enterprise and a strong national defense.
Our goal is to make a debate in every radio station, every television station, and every newspaper in the country over the direction of our country. Our second purpose is to carry these programs through the Congress as the president's grassroots lobby.
Lehrman says CAF may be the president's lobby, but it is not a re-election committee. Lehrman is a Reagan fan, but he wants to build a conservative movement that will last longer than 4 years. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
I appreciate you being here, Mike, and Mayor Smith. Herman, would you like to make a statement? The Mayor of Slocum. to make a statement?
I'll just re-emphasize what Mr. Register said, Governor. We appreciate him coming to the county.
We're just happy, Governor, to have the new end.
And without their efforts, I don't know that we would have realized this industry, this growth.
Well, Pat says we've been one of the best we have.
Yes, sir. From barbecue.
And thank you.
I'm glad to see you all. George, good to see you here.
It's good to see you, and we appreciate it.
Yes, sir, George. Thank you.
In a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Yea.
All opposed, nay. And it's unanimous. 619, awarding bids for miscellaneous items. Right after this meeting, we'll have
The issue of co-employee suits has been a hotly contested one for the last 6 years when a Supreme Court decision essentially rewrote the rules for one worker suing his fellow worker for injury. At the center of controversy are the legal bounds for winning one of these suits. Under current law, you would only have to prove that you were injured because someone was simply negligent. And Governor Wallace says that is hurting Alabama.
One of the largest, most reputable companies, a private report, is going to give us a low mark on the amount of industrial development hunting unless we correct them out of simple negligence to something more stronger than that.
House, come to order. As the gavel sounded the beginning of the special session, the governor introduced a bill which would require you to prove that your co-worker willfully intended to injure you before you could take him to court for that injury, a position business is all for.
We support that bill as it has been introduced. The willful standard puts Alabama in line with the other southeastern states, and it would help improve the industrial development of this state.
But a position labor finds hard to swallow.
Willful conduct would be a little bit too tough for us. Our attorneys advise us it would make it almost impossible to engage in a suit with willful conduct. So yes, we could not support willful.
As an added incentive, the administration is also including some extra benefits for workmen's compensation. But the battle will be seeing if there is any middle ground between simple negligence and willful intent. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
The Attorney General and Prison Commissioner have had their problems in the past. Those disputes have been over Smith's programs designed to ease prison overcrowding. Grandick says these work release programs are wrong.
We have more inmates in the work release system in Alabama than any other state in the country. You reconcile that with the highest unemployment, second highest unemployment in the United States, and how you justifying putting these people out.
Grandick accuses the prison commissioner of traveling around the state and, in his words, snowing the public into supporting the programs.
When somebody joins up to be head of the prison system, he's not there to open the door and chase criminals out. He's there to lock them up and see that they're maintained there and give them the basic needs of criminals. Basic needs like sanitation, health, adequate food, but not there for their amusement, for color television sets, recreational yards, and law libraries.
The Attorney General says prison overcrowding can be solved with the wise use of tax dollars. But for now, he says prison officials are talking out of both sides of their mouths.
Ladies and gentlemen, priorities have gotten all out of skew.
Cal Calloway, WSFA TV News, Dothan.
We've just recently received. We've had one coaching change all in 4 years. And so the coaches that all.
I kind of feel a little bit sad for Troy, but you know, there's a lot of good people out there, and I know they'll get a quality person to keep up the tradition that they have in the golf program at Troy, because you know they have excellent tradition there, But we're just excited about Mike coming to Albany, and we want to compete on a national level, and we feel like that he can certainly lead us in that direction.
Say hi, Mom.
Paul, Lou?
You're ready. Thank you, Ward. I appreciate it. Said, what's new about that? Frank Master. I thought, those two are brand new, they wasn't here, stuff. I'm not gonna hold them responsible for bad numbers and the others involved in it until they do something to deserve it. I'm not gonna.
On this side you see some computer, personal computer which is connected to the...
I think Jack Roman made a safe, sensible decision based on overwhelming evidence that it would be very dangerous to attempt to burn or in fact burn PCBs.
It sounds as though the final gavel has not sounded. That's what is being requested is additional research data, which we have substantial data that's been developed over the course of 11 years of more than 12 years of operation of the ocean incineration ships.
This order, putting the parties back into a position of the status quo. And that's what we're asking the commission to do, to put us back into the position to argue our legal positions there. We have filed an extensive brief.
difficult to render an advisory opinion that covers everything. And any time.
Very significant decision by this commission. And in that, if that is what you contemplate doing here today, I would say we set the precedent.
Well, the Constitution says you did not obtain any direct personal financial gain. And will be affected by the proposed legislation. The more the number of people
in the city of Birmingham. I'm a member of that pension system, but my time with the city puts me way past the category of investing.
You don't
my
have a
pension
personal financial, you don't have
well,
an interest.
Under the ruling that they have made, I shouldn't even vote on.
For several hours, businessmen, labor representatives, and trial lawyers flooded the House Judiciary Committee with pros and cons of the co-employee lawsuit measure introduced in the House yesterday. There is still disagreement between all factions.
And defeats the very purpose of it.
Meanwhile, the Senate acted like it was in a bad mood. Senate leaders yesterday said they were unhappy the governor had called this special session so quickly. And today, other senators took turns jabbing at the administration. Some members were unhappy, saying that the governor felt so strongly about co-employee changes, then why wasn't the bill also introduced in the upper chamber yesterday? Others were upset the administration waited so long to reveal its version of the co-employee bill. And still others say the administration is premature in pushing this issue when the different sides can't agree on a compromise. But even with so many feathers ruffled, a number of senators agreed to support the bill when it finally was introduced in the Senate today by Senator Earl Goodwin, who himself says he doesn't know what all is in the bill. Some of those senators say the haphazard way in which the administration is handling this bill seriously undermines the governor's sincerity. They accuse the administration of simply using this as a political tool to win support in the business community, an accusation the administration vehemently denies, saying it's seriously trying to improve the business climate. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
All three major airlines that serve Montgomery say business is booming. The biggest carrier, Delta, says they carried almost 11,000 passengers in April, a 14% increase over the same month last year. Republic Airlines also saw a 14% jump in April, and even the smallest carrier, Atlantic Southeast, saw an increase of 12% in the number of fares. The reason is simple enough. Airline representatives say as the economy has improved, businessmen have started making business trips again. And people who couldn't afford vacations last year are now taking to the skies. Business is in fact so good, a fourth airline will open here the first week in July. Eastern Metro Express is expected to provide an additional 7 flights a day from this airport that has in the past had airlines open and close within the span of a few months for lack of business. But even though all of this is good news for the airlines, it may not be so good immediately for passengers.
I think the prices are going to remain the same. I think the airlines have learned a very important lesson over the last year. As you know, some of them went bankrupt. Price wars had certainly an effect on it.
But while airline officials say all this probably won't mean any lower ticket prices in the near future, they say it will mean a more stable industry, where ticket prices are low enough that people can afford them, and yet not so low that the airlines are going broke. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News at Danley Field. The number of people flying in and out of Montgomery's Danley Field has so far jumped 13% higher than at this time last year. The number of chartered airplane flights is also experiencing a slight increase. Airport Director Joe Guastella says the improved economy is the biggest reason for the increased number of people flying.
They had planned to fly in the future. They had deferred those trips because of the economy. A lot of them are working now that weren't working before. And they're going to go, Mama is going to go visit the kids, and Grandma's going to go visit the grandchildren.
And even more people will be flying in and out of Montgomery starting the first week in July. That's when Eastern Metro Express airline will move in, making 7 flights a day, most of them to Atlanta. But what's good for the industry may not make customers happy. While competition could help lower ticket prices a little bit, most airline officials say the cost of flying has finally stabilized. And now that the industry is flying right again, the price wars that created the super low ticket prices of last year may be gone forever. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News at Danley Field.